Hello and welcome back to the Tik-A-Tee-Method. My name is Ron Castingway. Thank you so much for joining me here for week 29. Now in today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be introducing 1, a brand new concept, and 2, a brand new time signature. That concept has to do with simple and compound time signatures. Up until this point in my book, we've talked about how to recognize and perform rhythms in simple time signatures and in compound time signatures. Well, the question that I'm posing to you today is this: can a simple time signature become a compound time signature? And vice versa, can a compound time signature become a simple time signature? And as you've probably guessed, the answer is yes on both accounts. There's one factor that comes into play that makes the change. Now, what is that one factor? Well, you've got to stick around for the whole video to find out. What is that one time signature I'm introducing? Same thing. You've got to stick around for the whole video to find out. We're going to do one exercise today as opposed to 2 exercises in all of my previous videos, but we're going to be doing that one exercise 3 different times. That's your hint as to what that one factor might be. So without further ado, I hope you're going to stick around for the whole video because we're going to get started right now. Okay, here we are at the first page of week 29, and ultimately this page is going to give us all the answers we've been looking for. I want to start off by introducing the new time signature for this video, and it's right here at the top of the page, 3/8. And you'll notice right to the left of that, 3/4 is there, a time signature we should already be familiar with. 3/4 is a simple triple time signature, meaning that it gets 3 beats in the measure, and in this case, because there's a 4 on the bottom, the quarter note will receive the beat or the pulse. Now, logically, moving over to 3/8, again, this is a simple triple time signature. There are 3 beats in the measure. The only difference is because there's an 8 on the bottom, the 8th note will receive the beat or the pulse. So at a moderate tempo or moderately slow tempo or a slow tempo, these 2 time signatures are indeed both simple triple time signatures. In the case of 3/4, the quarter note can be equally divided into 2 eighth notes. In the case of 3/8, each of the eighth notes can be equally divided into 2 16th notes. So that should make sense. Now, let's move to that next concept for week 29. The question that I posed in the intro, can a simple time signature become a compound time signature, or vice versa, is the next concept I want to tackle. We already know that the answer is yes on both accounts, but what one factor can we attribute to this transformation? Well, it says it right here in the very first sentence of this top paragraph. Let's read together. The tempo matters, and there it is. We know that both 3/4 and 3/8 are most often categorized as simple triple time signatures. However, at very fast tempos, or tempi, you can use the plural of tempo interchangeably there, both of these time signatures could be counted in 1, meaning the tempo would be so fast that the conductor, for example, would only give the downbeat of each measure. This would, in turn, make these time signatures feel like compound time signatures as opposed to simple time signatures. Remember, 6, 9, and 12 are multiples of 3. Well, so is 3 itself. That's why this works. So the tempo is that one factor that we can attribute to the transformation of a simple time signature becoming a compound time signature, and vice versa. Now, let's talk briefly about the metric accents. In both 3/4 and 3/8, both of which could be considered a waltz, the metric accents in a simple triple time signature is a strong, weak, weak pulse. Ta, 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 T, 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 so forth and so on. Well, at a fast tempo or a very fast tempo, when we transform these simple time signatures into compound time signatures, that metric accent will change to just one metric accent. As I mentioned in the paragraph above, a conductor might only give one beat for these at fast tempos. Ta, 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 ti, 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 ti. And you can hear how that one metric accent on the dotted half note in 3/4 or the dotted quarter note in 3/8 is the only metric accent that exists when we're at a fast tempo. Now, we could still say that it's strong, weak, weak, and it's just a faster tempo. Yes, that's absolutely true. But at really fast tempos, it's really just one metric accent for 3/4 and 3/8. Kind of cool. And then beneath that, I've just relisted what we already know, the metric accents for 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8, which we've gone over in previous weeks in my book. So that's there just for review. So I've talked about how a simple time signature can transform, quote unquote, into a compound time signature. Well, what about the vice versa? What about a compound time signature that becomes a simple time signature? Does tempo have the same effect on those time signatures? And of course, the answer is yes. Read along with me here under what happens to compound time signatures at slow tempos. The opposite is also true for compound time signatures. If the tempo is really slow, compound time signatures actually transform into simple time signatures, and the beat note is the bottom number of the time signature, as it would be in simple time signatures. We will use 6/8 and 9/8 to demonstrate this concept in the exercises that follow, although this is true for all compound time signatures. So we won't be doing those exercises in this video. That's why it's really important that you go out and get my book so you can do all of the exercises included in each week and really grasp all of these rhythmic concepts that are introduced in every single one of the weeks in my book. So let's look at these examples at the bottom here to further explain this concept. The one on the left right here, moderate to fast tempo, we've got a compound time signature. It's 6/8. We know that most often when we see a 6, a 9, or a 12 on the top of our time signature, it's going to be compound. Well, now we're going to be introducing the idea of tempos affecting this. So at a moderate to moderately fast or beyond tempo, yes, this is a compound time signature. It sounds like this. Ta, ta, ti, 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 ti. And we know that because we've done a bunch of exercises in 6/8 up to this point. Well, now let's move to the right here, where we have slow to very slow tempos in a 6/8 time signature. This changes the game. Now we've got 6/8 notes in the measure, but the 8th note will actually receive the beat or the pulse, and that's how it should be performed. That changes what the bottom number means, therefore, in this time signature. Normally, the bottom number in a compound time signature represents the subdivision of the beat. However, when it transforms into a simple time signature, that bottom number now represents the beat note or the pulse as it would in a simple time signature. Therefore, this time signature right here, 6/8 at a slow or very slow tempo, will sound like this. Ta, 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 ti, 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 ti. All right, so we have 6/8 notes in the measure. The 8th note will receive the beat. Each one of those 8th notes can be broken down into 2 equal 16th notes. And we have 3 quarter notes now in this measure, where each one will get 2 beats, as it did in that demonstration. Kinda cool. So our compound time signatures are affected when the tempo becomes slow, and our simple time signatures 3/8 and 3/4 are affected when the tempo becomes faster. Some really cool stuff here. All right, let's go find that first exercise in 3/8 because we're going to be performing it at 3 different tempos. Here we go. Here we are, exercise 29D, and this one again is in our new time signature 3/8, and we're going to perform it, even though the directions say perform it twice, we're going to perform it 3 times, okay? So the 3 times we're going to perform it, we're going to do it at 72 for the 8th note, then we're going to do 62 for the dotted quarter note, and then we're going to have some fun, and we're going to have the dotted quarter note equal 82. So it'll be pretty fast. It'll be a pretty brisk tempo. So we're going to do those 3 tempos for this exercise. Now, the very first time we perform it, where the 8th note is getting the beat, we will see 3/8 as a simple triple time signature, meaning that there will be 3 beats in the measure and that the 8th note will be getting the beat. Each one of those 8th notes can be broken down into 2 equal 16th notes. And you'll notice as we go through the exercise that the Tik-A-Tee verbiage for these exercises in week 29 does not change. It's very logical, it's very straightforward, and it's very consistent. Okay, let's get into the analysis of this exercise as a slow waltz. Here we go. And remember, as we analyze, that the 8th note is getting the beat here. All right, in measure 1, we've got an 8th note here on beat 1, an 8th note here on beat 2, and then the subdivision of our beat note on beat 3 here into 2 equal 16th notes. Measure 2, we've got 2 16th notes, followed by an 8th note, followed by 2 16th notes. So very straightforward. All we have so far is the beat note and the 16th notes, which of course is the subdivision of that beat note, that 8th note. Now, measure 3 is a really fun rhythm. This one is very similar to the 16th note, 8th note, 16th note rhythm that I've introduced in previous weeks. The difference is here we've got an extra 8th note in the middle. So we've got a 16th note, then 2 8th notes, then another 16th note. And it's pretty difficult to write the beats here, except for beat 1, because they fall in between these 2 notes here. So beat 1 is on the first 16th note, nice and straightforward, but then beat 2 falls in the middle, and then beat 3 falls in the middle. If we have an entire measure of 16th notes in 3/8, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Tik-A, tik-A, tik-A. All right, so we have that first tick, but then I'm taking out the next tick and the following tick. So beat 2 and beat 3 will be a little bit ambiguous, and then I only have the upbeat, which is actually ah. Now, as far as the Tik-A-Tee verbiage here, as I've said in previous videos many times, we want to remember that we have 16th note syncopation here. Even though the middle 2 notes, this one here and this one here, are both 8th notes, we're not going to say T, because they fall on that second 16th note, the ah of the Tik-A pair. And we want to remind ourselves as we're doing these exercises, when we have 16th note syncopation, that it is indeed 16th note syncopation. That's why when I was trying to figure out the verbiage for 16th note syncopation that included 8th notes, that incorporated 8th notes, I wanted to stick with the ah as that verbiage. And it's actually really fun to say and play as well. Here's what measure 3 sounds like as written. I'll give myself a 1 measure count off. 1, 2, 3. Tik-A, ah, ah, T. Let me do that one more time. You can do it along with me. 1, ready, and Tik-A, ah, ah, T. So you can imagine at a faster tempo how much fun measure 3 is going to be. Some really cool stuff here. All right, let's move on to measure 4, which is one of the most straightforward measures in this whole exercise, because it's 3 8th notes, beat 1 here, beat 2 here, and beat 3 here. Those are the beat notes in 3/8 when we're in a simple triple time signature at a slower tempo. And while we're saying those 3 8th notes because it's a pretty straightforward measure, I'm hoping that we can look ahead to that first measure on the second line. Always be looking ahead when you're sight reading. And in measure 5, that first measure on that second line, we've got the one note that combines our 3 8th notes. And we know this from previous weeks. A dotted quarter note is equivalent to 3 tied 8th notes. So 3 8th notes combined will equal a dotted quarter note. Therefore, measure 5 takes up the entire measure, 1, 2, and 3, and we've got a tie into measure 6, don't we? So we're going to parenthesize beat 1 here because we're not going to re-articulate that 8th note. So we're going to have a note here that is 3 plus 1 into that measure 6. After that, we're going to say this T here on beat 2 and this T here on beat 3, the beat notes again in measure 6. Measure 7, pretty straightforward. Beat 1 is here. Beat 2 is on these 2 16th notes, and beat 3 is on this 8th note. And the final measure, measure 8, we have the arrival of the only rest in this entire exercise. Hopefully when we say this, we're going to be able to breathe somewhere, but if not, here's our one opportunity right before the closing of it. We've got a rest here on beat 1, then beat 2 is an 8th note, and beat 3 is an 8th note. So this exercise has a lot of beat notes and subdivisions of beat notes, has a really fun measure in measure 3. That rhythm is going to be really fun, especially when we get to those faster tempos. Now, we're going to perform this 3 times. The first time will be slow. After we perform it, we're still going to check our work against the MP3. Then we're going to perform it at the slightly faster tempo and again, check our work against that MP3. We don't need to reanalyze this for the faster tempos. We just need to be thinking about these 3/8 measures differently. The first performance will be as a simple triple time signature, and then the second time will be as a fast tempo compound time signature with a 3 feel, because 3 is certainly divisible by 3, right? 6, 9, 12, and 3. So at fast tempos, we have that one beat. The metric accent will change. Some really fun stuff here. All right, let's get to the performance of this exercise. We're going to start off by doing the 8th note equals 72. Here we go. The first thing I want to do is clear the ink so that we can see the exercise a little bit more clearly. And as I said, we're at 72 beats per minute in this exercise, or the 8th note equals 72. I'm using the metronome again from drummers-pulse.com. Thanks again to the folks at that website for offering up a free metronome. I will be performing this exercise on a G3. As usual, you are welcome to sing this on this pitch with me, an octave higher, an octave lower, or a different note altogether, but I really hope you'll perform this exercise, vocalize this exercise with me. So there's my pitch. Let's get the metronome started. I will be giving us a 1 measure count off. Here we go. 1, ready, and T, T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, 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 Ta, T, 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 Tik-A, T, T, T. All right, let's stop that metronome. That's really fun. Now, at the slower tempo, it's very, very straightforward. Even that third measure is very straightforward, right? You don't really hear or feel the 16th note syncopation too much. It's definitely there, but you don't feel it as much at the slower tempo. This is definitely a simple triple time signature when we're at a tempo like the 8th note equals 72. Okay, we've performed it. We need to go find the MP3 for the exercise to see if we did it correctly. And in my book for these exercises in week 29, there's actually 2 MP3s for 29D. One at the simple triple or the slower tempo, and one at a moderately fast tempo. So you can hear both of those MP3s. Let's go find the slower tempo one right now. All right, here we are at my website where you can find all 363 of the MP3s that accompany my book. These are the quote-unquote answers. All right, let's review your options. Once you are finished vocalizing an exercise for the first time, you've analyzed it, you've sight read it, now you want to check your work, you come to my website, you navigate to the correct MP3, and in this case, I've got us all queued up for week 29, exercise D, the slow tempo. We've got one of 3 options here. Option number 1 is to just listen to the MP3 and check our accuracy that way. Option number 2 is to vocalize along with the MP3 to help solidify those rhythmic concepts. And option number 3, and really important before moving on, is to perform the exercise along with the MP3 on your instrument. So whatever your principal instrument is, that's what you should be performing this exercise on. Now, if it's the voice, if that's your principal instrument, then great. Throw a metronome on and perform it without the MP3 to make sure that you really have it solidified. Okay, without further ado, I've got us all queued up here for week 29, exercise D, the slow tempo MP3. There is a 2 measure count off. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, ready, and T, T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, 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 Ta, T, T, Tik-A-tee, tee. All right, cool. There it is, exercise 29D with the eighth note getting the beat, a slower tempo. All right, now we're going to go back. We don't need to reanalyze exercise 29D, as I said. We're going to perform it a little bit faster and transform this simple triple time signature into a compound time signature feel. Let's go. All right, so we're going to perform exercise 29D a second time, fast enough to where we're going to transform that simple triple time signature that we first performed into a compound time signature feel. You'll notice on the metronome, I have it set to 62 beats per minute. Now, if we're in a compound time signature feel in 3/8, what exactly does that mean? Well, we have to think about that bottom number differently. In simple triple, we have 3 beats in the measure and the eighth note gets the beat. But if we're thinking in compound, that bottom number now is no longer the beat note, it's the subdivision of the beat. So the eighth note is the subdivision of a dotted quarter. So each one of these measures is going to be a dotted quarter note subdivided into 3 equal eighth notes. That's the pulse. That metric accent will happen on that dotted quarter note. Therefore, our metronome means dotted quarter note equals 62. So that's the tempo we're going to be taking this at. You'll notice in the metronome, I also have 8 beats. Well, each one of those beats per se is going to represent a measure in this exercise because there's 8 measures. Okay, I'm going to sing this again on a G3. I hope you're going to join me. This is going to get more and more fun the faster we go. So we are no longer thinking of this exercise as a slow, simple triple time signature. Now we're thinking about it and feeling it differently. The measures are going to go by fast. It's going to be thought of and felt like a compound time signature. Let's go. All right, I'm going to get this metronome started. Now, not only are we at 62 beats per minute, but I'm also going to utilize the fader that says triplets. Why? Because we want to hear those 3 eighth notes happening beneath that dotted quarter note. And when you hear the metronome click, you'll hear the dotted quarter note accented ever so slightly, and then a little bit softer. I have the fader halfway up. You'll hear the 3 eighth notes. Here it is. So you can hear that dotted quarter note and those 3 eighth notes. Here's the G3. Now I'm going to be giving us a 4 measure count off. I'm going to say 1, 2, ready, and it's going to go by fast. So be ready. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, T, ta, T, Tik-A, T. Wow, that's fun. All right, so you can hear the difference between the eighth note equals 72 versus the dotted quarter note equals 62. You can hear that transformation from a simple triple time signature at the slower tempo now into a compound time signature feel at this faster tempo. All right, we don't know if we did it right though. We've got to go to my website. We've got to navigate our way to exercise 29D at the faster tempo and find that MP3 quote unquote answer. Let's go do that together right now. All right, here we are back at my website. I've got exercise 29D, the fast tempo, all queued up. You already know what your 3 options are, so make your decision because without further ado, I'm pressing play. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, Tik-A, Tik-A, T, ta, T, Tik-A, T. Cool, there it is. And you'll notice that I did the count off a little bit differently there because it's not quite as fast as we vocalized it a moment ago. The MP3 is a little bit slower, but you can still feel how we transformed this simple triple time signature into a compound time signature feel. All right, now, I know you need to perform this on your instrument, but after you do, I hope that you're going to join me because we're going to have some real fun here and perform this at dotted quarter note equals 82. Let's do it. All right, here we are, queued up at 82 beats per minute, or the dotted quarter note equals 82. I'm going to keep that fader up halfway on the triplet so that we have that subdivision of those eighth notes, but this one's going to go by really fast. I'm going to give you that same count off of 1, 2, ready, and that 4 measure count off. Here we go. Let's get the metronome started. You can hear how fast that is. Here's the G3. All right, that's what I'll be singing it on. And again, 1, 2, ready, and is our count off. Be ready, here we go. 1, 2, ready, and T, T, ticka, ticka, T, ticka, ticka, T, 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 ta, T, 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 ticka, T, T, T. All right, man, that was fun. Let's do it one more time. Here we go. Here's the G3. I'm gonna give you 1, 2, ready, and get a second shot at it. 1, 2, ready, and T, T, ticka, ticka, T, ticka, ticka, T, 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 ta, T, 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 ticka, T, T, T. Cool. All right, let's stop that metronome. All right, we did it twice. The reason I did that is because there's no MP3 at this fast tempo, so I wanted you to hear it 2 times so that you can sort of check your work, pause the video if you need to. But that's the idea, is to take this 3/8 simple time signature at a slow tempo and transform it into a compound time signature by just making it faster and faster. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, you can also do the opposite with compound time signatures like 6/8, 9/8, 12/8 that are at a normally moderate or faster tempo. When they go slower, they transform into a simple time signature. And there's lots of exercises in my book that allow you and afford you that opportunity to practice. So I hope you'll go out and get my book. One, 2, 3, 1, ready, and. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you so much for joining me here for week 29. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Now, as I've said in previous videos, and is especially true here for week 29, these videos are only intended to be supplemental resources to all of the material and exercises in my book. So if you want to practice more exercises going from simple to compound and from compound to simple, you need to go out and get my book. It's available at my website, roncastonguay.com, and it's also available on Amazon and at jwpepper.com. Please, in the meantime, I hope you'll help out the channel. Hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell so you get the latest video. And if you have a question or a comment, leave it below. I will reply to any and all comments. Again, thank you so much for your support and for watching this channel. I really hope these videos are helpful on your rhythmic journey. I will see you in week 30.